If you love to lift heavy and roll hard, but also work a full time job, it can be difficult to find the perfect balance between both. In this podcast, I break down my best tools and tactics to get the most out of your training both in the gym and on the mat, while also trying to balance your full time job. I go over everything from how to organize your training week for better recovery, how to optimize your nutrition so that way you can get more out of your workouts, and how to set up your jiu-jitsu training sessions to make faster progress over time. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Settlage Strength Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to balance the training that you do in the gym, the training that you do on the mat, while also working a full-time job, or just balancing life and training together. And the main inspiration for this week's episode came from a YouTube video that I uploaded yesterday. Yesterday, I uploaded an interview that I did with DeAndre Corbe. If you guys don't know who he is, definitely check him out, because I believe DeAndre Corbe is going to be one of the greatest grapplers who's ever walked the face of the earth, and he's well on his way to being one of the greats of all time. DeAndre he's just spectacular. He smoked his entire bracket at ADCC West Coast Trials. He also just won the Zapatero World Championships for the grand prize of $100,000. And what's so cool about DeAndre is that he is currently ranked number one in the world at lightweight, so like 155, 160 pounds. And the dope thing is that he also still works a full-time 9-to-5 job. He does not train like a professional athlete in the context of he wakes up and then does jiu-jitsu all day and then goes to bed. He has a full-time 40-hour work week that he has on top of him also training jiu-jitsu, getting into strength and conditioning work, doing his recovery work, and all of that stuff. And what's awesome about DeAndre, and in that interview, we kind of touched on it a little bit, is DeAndre is really pulling all the levers that he can to get the most out of every single training session. And the proof is in the pudding, and the results speak for themselves. He's quickly becoming one of the best in the world, on top of the fact that he also works full time. And I know for a lot of you who are listening to this podcast, maybe 1% of you are professional full-time grapplers that do nothing else but wake up, go to jiu-jitsu, and then go to bed. Everyone else who's listening to this podcast, everyone else who's part of the Lift Heavy, Roll Hard Grappling Club, either has a full-time job, either is a student trying to balance work and school and training in the gym and going to jiu-jitsu. And so I figured in this episode, we would break down some of the common mistakes that I have seen that hold grapplers back from being able to have a good balance of the training that they do with just living everyday life, as well as some practical steps and tools that you could use to get the most out of the training that you do have time to complete each and every single week. So to start off, I did some polls on my Instagram trying to get a gauge of, okay, on average, and this is just on Instagram, maybe the YouTube audience would be different, but on average across Instagram, the people that follow my Instagram account train jiu-jitsu anywhere from 3 to 4 times per week, and they lift or do strength training anywhere from 3 to 4 times per week. So at the very least, they're doing 6 training sessions between lifting heavy and rolling hard, and at the most, on average, people are doing about 8 training sessions split up between lifting heavy and rolling hard. Of course, there's going to be people who go to jiu-jitsu 7 days a week. Of course, there's going to be people who go to the gym 7 days a week, and there's people that don't go to the gym at all and maybe go to jiu-jitsu once every other week. But on average, about 3 to 4 workouts, on average, 3 to 4 jiu-jitsu sessions. And that's honestly, if you can get in 3 to 4 lifting heavy sessions, 3 to 4 rolling hard sessions, that's awesome. Like, that is plenty of training to see positive progress in your grappling skills, assuming that you're, getting the most out of each training session, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And if you're doing about 3 to 4 workouts per week, that's awesome. One of the most common questions I get, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, is how many days per week should I be strength training for jiu-jitsu? And I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but my go-to answer is always lift as many days as you can every single week, just as long as it doesn't negatively impact your recovery for jiu-jitsu. So at a minimum, 2 days a week is awesome. I don't really think you get that much benefit strength training once a week. Like you could be doing a ton of jiu-jitsu, and even though people say, oh, jiu-jitsu is great for helping improve your cardio, and it's great because you're doing all these pulling and grappling, and it's great for building strength. Yeah, that's true, but that doesn't equate to a full-blown strength and conditioning session. And if you only had one strength and conditioning session per week, you really don't get that much benefit out of it unless that one training session is so intense, so crazy that it just smokes you for the rest of the week. That's why I think it's better, and I've seen this in person, I've used it in my own life. It's better to have at least 2 strength training sessions per week to kind of spread out some of that training volume and spread out some of that training intensity. If you can handle more, then definitely do more. Some seasons of life may allow you to handle 4 full-blown workouts every single week. Other seasons of life may cause you to only do about 2 or 3, but somewhere in that range, 2 to 4 strength and conditioning workouts per week is what I've seen to work best across all sorts of grappling athletes, from teenagers to young adults, all the way up to masters athletes, white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, people who had a wrestling background, people who have never done any combat sport before. 2 to 4 strength and conditioning sessions per week is a pretty good place to start. And when it comes to the grappling training that you're doing, then kind of goes into this kind of feeds into the first mistake that I see. How much grappling training you should be doing every single week is going to depend on your overall training goals, which brings us to mistake number 1 that I see, and that's just not being clear on what your training goals are. A lot of times people start jiu-jitsu for a variety of reasons, and then as they stay in jiu-jitsu, the reason why they stay in jiu-jitsu and how they prioritize jiu-jitsu may change. So when I first started training jiu-jitsu, I wanted to do something that was kind of like wrestling. I really missed grappling. I was doing some bodybuilding. I competed in one bodybuilding show. And even though that was really, really fun and a great experience, I did not want to be like a career bodybuilder per se. I wanted to get back into combat sports. I wanted to do some form of martial arts, some form of grappling, something that was like wrestling, something that had the intensity of wrestling, a place for me to funnel the athleticism and the fitness that I was building in the gym. And that's ultimately why I started doing jiu-jitsu. Shortly thereafter, I got really into competing, and I was like, I'm going to try to be a world champ. And I was training all the time, and that was my focus, was competition. Stick with jiu-jitsu a few years after that, and that kind of brings me to where I'm currently at. I have no desire to compete, and I'm not necessarily doing jiu-jitsu for the same reason that I started doing jiu-jitsu, to kind of just do another combat sport. I really love doing jiu-jitsu. I think it's really fun. It's a great community. And those are kind of the reasons why I'm staying in jiu-jitsu currently. And so you can kind of see how, the reasons why we do jiu-jitsu or the goals that we have when we get into jiu-jitsu may change as we kind of progress through the sport. And it's important that if you want to get the most out of the training sessions that you do on the mat, it's important that you focus on clearly identifying what your goals are. For some people, they might do jiu-jitsu just as a way to kind of get in some extra cardio training. So they don't really care about their grappling performance per se. They're just doing it as another form of physical activity, and that's totally okay. So for that person, they may want to, further optimize the workouts that they do, and they don't really care if their jiu-jitsu training isn't as optimized. There are other people where that might be reversed, where they are solely focused on becoming the best grappling athlete that they could possibly be, and they want every single grappling session to be optimized. Their workouts, the only reason why they're working out and lifting heavy is so that they could be a better grappling athlete. So they don't necessarily care as much if their workouts aren't optimized to maximize muscle growth. They don't really care as much if their workouts aren't optimized to squat the heaviest weight possible, to bench or deadlift the heaviest weight possible. They're just kind of using those workouts as a way to support the jiu-jitsu training that they're doing. And when people have a hard time balancing training in the gym and training on the mat, if you don't have a clear goal on what you want to focus on or what you want to achieve, it makes it really difficult to come up with a game plan on how you're going to balance those things. One of the things I've talked about before is that there are 2 keys to discipline. And the first one is going to be preparation, and the next one is going to be consistency. Part of being prepared and being disciplined is having a very clear vision. I've talked about this on other podcasts called the VIP method, where V stands for vision. You can't just have a goal. I mean, you can just have a goal, but if your goal is to like win a jiu-jitsu tournament, good freaking luck, because everyone at that tournament, every single person in your bracket, all has the same goal. If your goal is to get in better shape, nice. Like, what does getting in better shape mean? Goals can sometimes be so broad, or just like an end point that can be helpful a little bit. But if you really wanted to take things to the next level and be successful and being able to achieve that goal, you got to come up with a vision on how you're going to get there. And having a clear vision helps you be a little bit more prepared, helps you take a little bit more information and direction into how you prepare, so that way you can be consistent over time. So VIP method, V stands for vision, I stands for intention. What are the intentions that you're bringing into each training session? There are some training sessions where your intentions may be to work on improving your technical skills. The intensity doesn't need to be super high. The rounds don't need to be with the toughest training partners ever. The intention for that training session is to work on improving your grappling skills, or even a workout. In the episode that I did about the best training split, when I talked about the conjugate method, there are some workouts where your intention is to lift heavy ass weights. Your whole intention is to lift the heaviest weight possible and grind against heavy weights. There are other workouts where your intention is to move as fast and as explosively as possible. And if you can match up your intentions with the vision that you have, over time, you're going to have greater success and make faster progress and make better gains and all of that good stuff. And then P in the VIP method stands for purpose. If you can understand the purpose of what you're doing, you don't need to be like a full-blown expert in any of this stuff, but at least you have a little bit of information on why you're doing what you're doing, the purpose behind what you're doing. It's just going to help you be a little bit more informed, help you get a little bit more out of those actions. And so when we talk about that, the two keys to discipline are preparation and consistency. You can be more prepared when you have a clear vision. You can be more prepared when you have very clear intentions assigned to each training session. You can be more prepared when you understand the purpose of what it is that you're doing. And when you're more prepared, you can be more consistent. And so all of that, all the preparation, the consistency, the discipline, creating a vision, having the right intentions, understanding the purpose of what you're doing, all of those things come together to help you be better balanced and help you get more out of your training when you're trying to balance training in the gym, training on the mat, with work, with the stuff that happens in everyday life. And so just to kind of wrap up that first point, one of the biggest mistakes I see with athletes that struggle to balance their training and their work is that they just don't have a clear goal. They don't have a clear vision. Once they start creating that vision, they can start to then follow the cascade of actions that are going to help them be a little bit better prepared, be more consistent, and all of that good stuff. The next mistake that I see grappling athletes make when they really struggle with their training, to balance training in the gym, on the mat, with their work life, is that their recovery absolutely sucks. There is definitely something called overtraining, but for most athletes that I talk to, they will never overtrain in their life. Overtraining, I don't even think it's possible for someone who's not an elite athlete to overtrain. That's just a theory. I'm not saying that's a fact. That's just my own theory. Really, when people are truly overtraining, they are elite level athletes that are really pushing the upper limits of what's possible. So you think of like some of these people that do these ultra marathon runs where they're running 100 miles, 150 miles. Those people can at times definitely be overtraining because they're pushing like elite level status in running. Or you think of overtraining for someone like a power lifter where they have 1,000 pounds on their back. That is just so ridiculous. Like most people can't even fathom what that could possibly feel like. And overtraining can definitely happen for some of those people, but for everybody else that's not an elite athlete, most of the time it just comes down to under recovering. And those are, in my mind, two different things. Someone may, go to the gym 3 days a week. They may go to jiu-jitsu 4 days a week, and they may still be really banged up. They may still feel like, man, like I'm not seeing progress, man, like I'm not getting jacked, I'm not getting stronger, I might be overtraining. I don't think that person is overtraining. I think that person is just under recovering. And so if you really want to be able to better balance your lifting heavy, your rolling hard, and your work, you got to make sure that your recovery is on point. And I've talked about this before, but there are three main keys to optimizing your recovery. The first one is just going to be to optimize your sleep, not just overall sleep quantity or how long you're sleeping, but also sleep quality. When I was in college, and when I was in high school, and when I was in college, and even after college, I did not take my sleep seriously at all. And that's definitely it's not necessarily something I regret, but it's something that now I don't make that same mistake anymore. I do take my sleep very serious nowadays. But sleep is going to be one of the most important things that you can do for your overall recovery. It's kind of like the foundation of your recovery. When I was in high school and college, I was trying pretty much everything else to help with my recovery except sleeping more. I was doing red light therapy. I was taking all these different supplements. Anytime I could get, into a cold plunge or do cryotherapy, I was doing it. And yeah, some of those things helped. Like, I'm not going to say those things didn't help at all, but when sleep is missing, those things pale in comparison to helping you recover compared to if you were just getting consistent quality sleep for a good enough quantity of time. So at a base level, this is something that I talk about in the Super Sleep Toolkit, which is 100% for free. It's on the Strength Matrix training app. You get it as part of the Grappler Accelerator training program. I talk about how at a minimum, grappling athletes should be aiming for about 7 hours of quality sleep each night. That's not just being in bed for 7 hours. That's like actual quality sleep for 7 hours. So if you are someone who struggles to fall asleep, like it takes about a half hour to fall asleep, that may mean that you need to be in bed for 7.5 or even 8 hours to make sure you hit that 7 hour mark. Can you function and can you survive with less sleep? Yes, you absolutely can. People do it all the time. I did it for a really long period of time. Is that going to help you better balance and optimize your training? Absolutely not. So my goal for the year 2024 was to get 7 hours of quality sleep every single night. And I didn't do it every single night, but I can confidently say I probably did it for 90% of the nights 90% of the nights in 2024. And I can also confidently say that in 2024, I saw the greatest jump in progress since going through puberty. It was amazing. Like, all of my lifts skyrocketed. My conditioning skyrocketed. I packed on a ton of muscle. When I did a fat loss phase in 2024, I got crazy shredded. Like, everything improved when I made that one change of just getting more sleep. All that to say, starting with 7 hours minimum of quality sleep is going to be a great place to start further optimizing your recovery. Now, the next thing that's going to help with your recovery is your nutrition. We've talked about nutrition before. I did a whole episode on nutrition a couple weeks ago, so definitely check that out. Won't go too deep into that now. But if you just have those two things, if you focus on your sleep and you focus on your nutrition to start, it's going to make everything else that you do throughout the week so much easier. So, for example, say you're going to the gym 3 days a week and you do jiu-jitsu 3 days a week. That's that's the average according to Instagram. On Monday, say that's your lifting day. You wake up, you go to the gym first thing in the morning, then you have your post-workout meal, which we did talk about. I think that was episode 6 of the podcast. Go check that out. You have your post-workout meal, you go crush a full day at work, all that stuff. You go home, kiss the wife, watch a Denzel Washington movie, and then go to bed. Like, great day of training. If you have great sleep going into Tuesday, you're going to be better prepared to freaking crush that jiu-jitsu session on Tuesday. If you can crush that jiu-jitsu session on Tuesday and follow it up with great sleep, you're better prepared to have a great workout on Wednesday. Now, say you don't get good sleep, or say you don't handle your nutrition. You train Monday morning, you do your regular workout, but you skip your post-workout meal, and you just kind of mess around. You're not taking it serious. You're not taking your hydration serious. And then you stay up super late, just doom scrolling on Instagram. You get terrible sleep. You wake up late Tuesday, you feel all scrambled and rushed, and then you go rush to work, and thank God you grabbed your rash guard and your shorts so that you can still go to jiu-jitsu after work. You show up to jiu-jitsu after work, you have a okay training session, kind of sore, pretty banged up from the workout you did on Monday, but you at least made it to jiu-jitsu. Congratulations. After that, you go home, you stay up late again, doom scrolling on Instagram. You don't even bother watching a Denzel Washington movie. You just mess around on Instagram for way too long. You go to bed late again, and now it's Wednesday. Now you got to get up early to try to get your workout done, but you're so fatigued and so banged up from the workout that you did on Monday and the jiu-jitsu session that you did on Tuesday that by the time you make it to Wednesday, you can't even get the most out of that training session. Say it's a max effort upper body session, you know that you should be at least throwing up 2 plates on the floor press, but you're so banged up and so fatigued, you can barely get through a 185. Then you kind of just like drag through the rest of the workout. You feel super discouraged, and then you repeat the cycle on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and try to rest a little bit on Sunday. Then you start the week over again that following Monday. That's kind of an extreme example, but you can start to see how that really does have an impact. If you are not able to get the most out of each training session, you're really shooting yourself in the foot because you're not going to be able to make the most amount of progress possible. And so when it comes to the things that are going to help improve your recovery the most, that are going to make it a little bit easier, both physically and mentally, to get through all of those training sessions throughout the week, sleep is going to be first, nutrition is going to be second, and then how you structure your training week is going to be third. I think I talked about this in episode 1 of the podcast, where I talked about how to balance lifting heavy and rolling hard. I talked about structuring your training week to allow for a little bit more recovery between some of those tough training sessions. One thing I like to think about when organizing my training week is the 48 to 72 hour rule. I try to make sure that my hardest training sessions are separated by about 48 to 72 hours. So say I did a really hard workout on Monday. I may go to jiu-jitsu on Monday. That may be, well, let's say we'll keep the example of the people from Instagram on average that are doing 3 workouts and 3 jiu-jitsu sessions per week. So say on Monday, that's just a lifting day. You go, you lift heavy on Monday, super intense workout, had a ton of fun, great. Tuesday, 24 hours later, if you're going to go to the gym or if you're going to go to jiu-jitsu, I would strongly suggest that you keep that training session intentionally a little bit lighter. That doesn't mean it needs to be a complete rest day, doesn't mean that you need to, completely take the day off or anything like that. Just means that you want to have a day that's intentionally a little bit lower training volume, intentionally a little bit lower intensity. So for me, if I lift on Monday and I go to jiu-jitsu on Tuesday, that Tuesday, I'm very particular and very careful with who I pick as a training partner. I'll oftentimes work with people who are either a little less experienced or maybe even a little bit smaller. So that way I'm not, grinding physically that entire training session. I'm working on some constraint-based games that are going to help me further build my skills and different things that I'm working on. And it's going to be still a good training session, still work up a little bit of a sweat, but I'm not going to be completely smoked and destroyed by the end of it. Now, when we roll into Wednesday, that's 48 hours after. That's 48 hours after Monday. So that's going to be a great time to either have another really high intensity training session, or you can have another high intensity training session 72 hours later from Monday on Thursday. So think about it this way. High stimulus training session Monday, Tuesday, low stimulus training session. Wednesday, you kind of have the option. That can be another high stimulus session or it can be another low stimulus session. Thursday, that would be another great day to really push it. If you didn't have a hard jiu-jitsu session in the week so far, that could be the day where you do all your hardest sparring rounds, where you make eye contact with every training partner that gives you goosebumps and you think like, gosh, I don't want to roll with that guy. That guy's super tough. Thursday would be the day that you roll with that guy. Thursday would be the day where you freaking roll hard and go nuts. And then again, follow it up. Friday would be lower stimulus training session, a little bit lighter and all of that good stuff. So if you're following the 48 to 72 hour rule, The main benefit of using that is to help you have a little bit more time to recover between those high stimulus or most physically and mentally taxing training sessions, because you can't expect to be redlining every single day throughout the week. I mean, that's really one of the biggest mistakes that causes people to struggle to balance training with their work life, is because they are just redlining. They work all day, then they go super hard on Monday night. They work all day Tuesday, go super hard again on Tuesday night. They work all day Wednesday. By the time it comes to Wednesday night, they are so smoked, so fatigued. They're like, man, I can't even really, I'm like crashing and burning over here. Then they wake up Thursday and they're like, gosh, I really need to rest. I'm not even going to bother training today. And the cycle continues. So sleep, nutrition, training week. Take care of those things, organize those things. That's drastically going to help your recovery, help it be a little bit easier to balance the training that you do in the gym, on the mat, with your work life. Now, the other thing that I would suggest, and this kind of goes into that last point of organizing your training week, is the biggest mistake, or another big mistake that I see grappling athletes make when they struggle to balance these two things, is that they don't have a plan and they don't have any discipline. It is not easy fitting all of those things together in one 7-day week. To lift 3 days a week, to go to jiu-jitsu 3 days a week, and still work a 40-hour job, it's tough. It's not going to be easy. Sometimes I think people want an easy answer, like, man, there's got to be some easy way to like balance it all. It's like, it's not easy. It's simple. Just takes discipline, takes preparation, takes consistency, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And the other thing I think is important to recognize is that, look, you make time for what's important to you. If you don't have time to do something, it's just simply not that important to you. It's not a priority. And some people get really butthurt when someone tells them that, and I think that's just because they know it's true and they don't want to admit it. I don't have time to go to the movies every single weekend, which honestly is kind of a bummer because I freaking love the movies. If I wasn't doing this podcast and coaching grappling athletes, I would probably do something with going to the movie theater all the time because I love the movies. However, I don't have time to do that. And I just have to be honest and say, like, look, going to the movies is not as big of a priority as running my business. Going to the movies every single weekend is not as big of a priority as getting in my workouts and getting in my jiu-jitsu training. And that's totally okay. And so for someone that's listening to this, if you feel like, or you recognize like, man, I don't have time to do any of this. I don't have time to go to jiu-jitsu. I don't have time to go to the gym. That's okay. Just be honest with yourself and recognize, I guess those things aren't that important to you, or those things aren't that much of a priority. If you do want them to be a higher priority, or if you do want them to be more important to you because your vision requires you to do those things, then you got to start thinking, okay, what am I going to change? How am I going to reorganize my week? How am I going to cut out distractions? How am I going to cut down on time that is spent doing things that aren't serving me, so that way I can fill it in with jiu-jitsu or lifting at the gym? I think sometimes for myself, I don't know if any of you guys experience this, but I know for myself, sometimes I get really discouraged when I can't do as much jiu-jitsu, or I start missing a bunch of jiu-jitsu training sessions. I start to feel kind of like, man, like I can't believe I missed another training session. That training session is gone. I'm not going to be able to make that training session up. Everyone is getting better. Everyone's going to surpass me. Next time I go to jiu-jitsu, everyone's going to make fun of me and call me a loser. That's kind of an exaggeration, but you all know what I'm talking about. It doesn't feel good when you have to miss a training session. However, one thing that's been helpful for me every time I feel that way is looking at the situation and recognizing like, okay, why did I miss? Was it because I had to, record a podcast for work instead? If that's the case, it's like, you know what? Yeah, for today, recording a podcast is more important than going to jiu-jitsu. Recording a podcast today, it doesn't mean every single day, but today that I'm recording this takes higher priority than going to jiu-jitsu. And that is mainly because I have a vision on where I want this podcast to go. I have a vision for how I want to impact the world and teach everyone to lift heavy and roll hard. I have a vision of how I want to help people feel and perform their best. And part of that vision requires me to record these podcasts. And that may mean that I'm going to prioritize recording a podcast over going to jiu-jitsu. And that's okay. And that's something that, I encourage everyone to do. Run an assessment on, okay, why did I miss that training session? And if it's simply because something that takes higher priority took its place, that's totally okay. If it's something that doesn't take higher priority, well, then you have some change that needs to happen. If you missed a workout, or let's say you missed a workout and you run an assessment and you ask yourself, okay, why did I miss this training session, or why did I miss this workout? Well, I got up, 30 minutes before I had to go to work. Okay, well, was sleeping up until 30 minutes before you had to start work more important? Is that your priority? No, it's not my priority, because I was actually staying up super late, doom scrolling on Instagram, not doing anything productive. Okay, well, you got up late because you stayed up late. So, and the reason you stayed up late is because you were spending all night on Instagram. Is spending all night on Instagram more important than getting your workout done? Is staying up all night on Instagram part of the vision that you have to succeed in the future? If it is, then just keep doing that, and you're going to reap the rewards of those actions. If it's not, then you got to make a change. You got to change something. There's an amazing interview that Corey Gregory did with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's one of the best interviews I've ever watched in my entire life. I've watched it probably 100 times. It's just so good. And in that interview, Arnold talks about how he hears people all the time saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know my life and all this stuff. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And he says, you know what? Forget all that. There is never enough time. So you have to make the time. And I heard him say that interview dropped when I was in college, and that completely changed my life. It completely changed how I looked at creating a daily schedule and being disciplined in my time management and getting up early. And if I wanted to get up early to have a great workout, that meant I needed to go to bed early. That meant I needed to stop dicking around on my phone and start getting to bed early, getting quality sleep so I can have a quality and amazing training session in the gym. And Arnold's right. You're never going to have enough time. And if you're struggling to balance working a 40-hour work week, 9 to 5, full-time job with the training that you do in the gym and on the mat, that's life, bud. That's just the way it goes. There's never going to be enough time to do it all, so you have to make the time. Are there things that you can cut out, or are there things that you can remove from your daily habits or remove from your weekly schedule that allow you to prioritize lifting heavy and rolling hard a little bit more? Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can't do that. I'm at the age now where I don't have kids now, but a lot of my friends are starting families. A lot of my friends have their first kid, and it's been really interesting watching them in real time do a drastic shift in their priorities. There are guys that are having kids now where we used to lift 3-4 days a week at 4 a.m., just gangstering out, lifting heavy all the time, blasting Tupac, blasting Metallica, and it was super fun. And now that some of those friends are having kids or starting a family, their priorities completely shift. Getting up at 4 a.m. or getting to the gym at 4 a.m. to blast Metallica and Tupac and squat heavy isn't a priority right now. Being there for their child is a priority, which is totally okay. However, lifting at 4 a.m. may not be the priority or may not be part of their vision, but part of their vision may still be being jacked, being strong, staying in shape. So they keep that part of their vision and they reorganize their training week, they reorganize their, work schedule if they can and all that stuff to make the time to still take actions that are going to help them fulfill that vision of being jacked, staying in shape, and being present with their family. All that to say, you have to have a clear vision on where you want to go. You have to have a clear vision on what you want to achieve. Based on that vision, you can then start putting in different actions and daily disciplined habits to help you get there. And the two keys to discipline are preparation and consistency. If you're not prepared or you don't have a plan for each week on how you're going to get those training sessions in, you're really planning to fail. That's like an old school quote. I don't know who said that quote back in the day, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's important that when you look at each week, you already know. Like, there's no guesswork on when you're going to the gym. There's no guesswork when you're going to jiu-jitsu. You already know. You already got that on lock. For myself, one of my favorite things to do is making sure that on Sunday, I look at the next 7 days, so Monday through Saturday. I think that's 7 days. Should be 7 days. Anyways, I look at the week from on Sunday night, I get everything ready for Monday. And Monday through Saturday, I know, okay, each of these days, I'm going to make sure that this happens, this happens, this happens, and this happens, because all of those things are going to help me get closer to fulfilling that vision. On Monday, I know I'm going to the gym at this time. I'm going to jiu-jitsu at this time. Tuesday is a jiu-jitsu only day, or whatever the case may be. Wednesday is a gym only day, and I kind of build out my week from there. When I first got into college, I didn't have that, and the first semester of college was super tough, mainly because I was just struggling with trying to figure out when I was going to get to the gym. I would wake up. Sometimes I would go before class. Sometimes I'd get up a little bit late and think like, oh man, I don't have time to go to the gym now. I'll try to go to the gym a little bit later, or maybe I'll go before work. And what sucked is that when I didn't have a plan on when I was going to the gym, something else always came up. Maybe not always, but something else frequently came up. Like, oh my gosh, like the check engine light popped up on my car. I got to go take it to, the mechanic shop to get that checked out. I can't go to the gym. Or I get called into work early because they need me to cover for somebody. So I can't go to the gym before work because then I got to start earlier right when I get out of school and all that stuff. And so once I kind of made that shift, that was what happened the first semester of college. Second semester was when I made that shift. Second semester was when I said, okay, I'm going to start planning out when I'm going to the gym. And the only time I could go to the gym was super early in the morning because everyone else was asleep and nobody was bothering me. In Home Alone, when they're all freaking out, getting ready to leave for the airport, and I think he's the neighbor. The neighbor goes up to the guy in the van. He's like, does this car have automatic transmission? Does this car have four-wheel drive? Does this car get good gas mileage? And then the driver's like, gee, kid, I don't know. Quit bothering me. That's basically what I did second semester of college. I said, gee, kid, I don't know. Quit bothering me. I'm going to work out in the morning before everyone else gets up. I'm going to work out in the morning before anyone needs me to clock in for work, before anybody needs to look at my notes from class or anything like that. So that way I have that uninterrupted time to get that workout in. And I know for a fact, outside of me getting struck by lightning, that workout was going to get done. And that right there is what I really believe can help you get started on being able to better balance training and working. It's you just got to make the time to do it, because there's never going to be enough time to make all those things happen. Hey, real quick, I wanted to pause the podcast and tell you about the Strength Matrix training app and our free training program called Grappler Accelerator. This is a complete training program that covers all of your needs to help you get started on becoming the best grappling athlete that you can be. Everything from a full strength and conditioning training program, a simple and clean diet guide, recovery protocols, a super sleep toolkit, and a bunch of other dope stuff to help you lift heavy and roll hard. There's already over 1,000 grapplers that have downloaded this training program and gotten started on enhancing their grappling athleticism, and you can be the next. To download this training program today, just go to thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler or click the link in the description below. Now, back to the podcast. Now let's talk about how you can structure your training week if you're brand new to this. Maybe you're listening to this podcast episode and you recognize, okay, Coach Jay, I want to get jacked. I want to get brutally strong. I want to improve in my grappling skills. I want to stop gassing out. I recognize that I need to create a vision, and my vision includes me being jacked and tan, yet I don't know how to get there. I don't know where to start. If that's you, listen to this next part of the podcast. So let's say you want to go to the gym 3 days a week. I think that's a great place to start. And let's say you're doing 3 jiu-jitsu sessions per week. If you have time to do more, fantastic, but we're not going to get overzealous right from the jump. 3 and 3. In episode 5 of the podcast, I think that's the episode that I talked about the best training split for jiu-jitsu. There's a bunch of different training splits that you can do. You can do upper, lower, push, pull, legs, conjugate, all that stuff. However, I really think that if you're just getting started, one of the best training splits that you can use is a full body training split. So if you're going to the gym 3 days a week, that means you're going to do 3 full body workouts per week. And how I would structure those would kind of be like a good blend and balance of some strength work, some hypertrophy work, along with some conditioning. If you want to emphasize either one of those things over another, you totally can. But I think as long as you're getting like a good balance of all 3 of those, that's a great place to start in helping you kickstart your grappling athleticism. And that's ultimately why I formatted the Grappler Accelerator training program, which is, by the way, 100% for free in the Strength Matrix training app. That's why I formatted it that way. I wanted to help grapplers kickstart their athleticism so that way they can stimulate crazy strength gains, get started on building some quality muscle, and improving their conditioning. If you are listening to this podcast, in which a bunch of people who listen to the podcast have already done Grappler Accelerator, which is great, and you're ready to move on to another training program, I would suggest doing Foundations. Foundations is also a 3-day full body training split, which focuses on helping you build a strong base of strength, continuing to stimulate muscle growth, and really improving your overall work capacity. All that being said, 3 days a week for your workouts, I personally would structure those to have a workout happen every other day. So that could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If you wanted to have a little bit more time between a couple of those workouts, that's fine too. Like if you go Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, whatever you feel like doing. But for me personally, if I'm only able to get to the gym 3 days a week, I want to have each workout just every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. On the days that you don't go to the gym, those could be your jiu-jitsu training days. Sometimes when working with a new athlete, I might ask what their jiu-jitsu training schedule is first because that is a little bit more locked in. It's not like you can just randomly select to go to jiu-jitsu at any point in a 24-hour day. Most schools have direct, set class times that you got to attend, and that's totally okay. But if you can, have your workouts be every other day. On the days that you're not working out, make those your jiu-jitsu days. From there, you can really start to build in a lot of habits that are going to help you seamlessly move from one training day to the next. So on the days that you work out, you want to make sure that you have a really good pre-workout meal. You want to make sure that you have, proper hydration for that workout. In episode 6, I think that's the one that I talked about nutrition and providing practical tools that you can use to optimize your nutrition as a grappler. Then, on the days that you go to jiu-jitsu, make sure that you have a proper warm-up, go into that training session with a good plan on the things that you want to work on. Make sure you're setting the right intentions for those training sessions. And that's really going to help you move throughout the week. Now, if you remember what I said about the 48 to 72 hour rule earlier, you do kind of run into some issues. So if you're going to the gym every other day and you go to jiu-jitsu on the off days, where do you put in the higher stimulus training sessions? Where do you put in the lower stimulus training sessions? All kind of depends on what you prefer. So for me, when I am using this type of training setup, all my gym sessions, I would say, are at like 7 out of 10 intensity or 7 out of 10 difficulty. So none of them are super high, none of them are super low. Like I'm trying to just, maintain and just keep chopping wood, keep putting up points on the scoreboard in each of those workouts. My jiu-jitsu sessions are the ones that are going to vary up and down with difficulty and intensity. So say I go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all those workouts are pretty set. No workout is going to be drastically more difficult or drastically easier than another. The jiu-jitsu sessions that I do in between may all look a little bit different. So go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, jiu-jitsu may be a little bit easier. That may be a lower stimulus training session. Thursday may also be a lower stimulus training session. But Saturday's open mat. So you already know your boy's getting after it at open mat. So I might make Saturday the one jiu-jitsu training session that I really, really push it, because Sunday is going to be a complete rest day. So I know that I'm going to have plenty of time to recover from that really intense jiu-jitsu training session before I start another week of training. If you're only going to jiu-jitsu 3 days a week, typically what I suggest for most grapplers is having 2 lower stimulus training sessions and only 1 high stimulus training session. Main reason being is that you're also working out, and you don't always have the luxury of having exactly 48 to 72 hours between training sessions. And so if you're lifting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, going to jiu-jitsu Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I would try to make that Saturday jiu-jitsu session the tough one, because you already know you're going to get plenty of recovery and rest that following Sunday. I want to reiterate why it's so important to keep strength training as part of your training week. I could totally understand why someone who's thinking, man, well, I really just want to maximize my time on the mat, and I want to, push all my chips into training jiu-jitsu. So I'll just do 6 days of jiu-jitsu and not have to worry about the workouts. And I hear what you're saying with that. However, that's not going to end very well for you. And the main reason being is because if you want to have longevity in jiu-jitsu, if you want to perform your best in jiu-jitsu, you got to get stronger. Getting stronger is the number one thing you can do off the mat to improve your performance on the mat. Main reason being is because as you get stronger, you're going to be able to apply more force into all of your techniques. So that means more force behind every takedown, every guard pass, every sweep, every submission. As you get stronger, you're also going to decrease your risk of injury. The only reason why injuries happen is because your body can't withstand the forces that are being applied to it. And if you improve your ability to absorb force, if you improve your ability to handle that physical stress that happens in jiu-jitsu, you're going to be more durable and you're going to be less likely to get injured. No one ever got injured because they were too strong, and no one ever lost a match in jiu-jitsu. No one ever was bad at jiu-jitsu because they were too strong. Some people have the misconception and spread this myth that, you don't want to lift for jiu-jitsu because it's going to ruin your technique. It's like lifting has no impact on whether or not your technique is good, quote unquote good, or not. If you had poor armbar mechanics, getting stronger isn't going to make your armbar mechanics worse or better. It's just going to allow you to apply more force into the armbar mechanics that you already currently have. You can almost think of like as you get stronger, it just enhances whatever grappling skills you already have. So if your grappling skills are pretty trash and your guard game sucks and the way you set up triangles and arm bars and heel hooks and all those things are all kind of sloppy, getting stronger just only enhances the strength behind your sloppy technique. However, if you are much more technical, you do have great armbar mechanics and triangle mechanics and all of that stuff, having more strength behind all of those things is only going to make those things better. The other thing that is important to remember is that as you get stronger, you're going to be able to, not just as you get stronger, but as you just improve your base level of fitness as a whole. So strength, conditioning, mobility, explosive power, all that stuff. As you expand that base of fitness and general physical preparedness, you're actually going to drastically improve your ability to handle more and more training. So maybe you're someone who's listening to this and you think like, gosh, I can't even imagine what it would be like to do 3 workouts and 3 jiu-jitsu sessions a week, because I would just be completely cooked. As you stick with it, as you continue to build that base of general physical preparedness, you're going to be able to handle more and more training volume without it being as taxing. And that obviously there is like a ceiling to that per se, and that's where you might have to lean more into some other recovery strategies to help you get through more of that training. But if you're able to build out the base of that athletic pyramid where you have a greater base of physical preparedness, it's going to be much easier for you to handle more and more training, which can help you reach a higher peak of athleticism and performance. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in this podcast was sharing a little bit more of my own personal story with trying to balance all the training that I do in the gym, on the mat, and my work life. And I mentioned it earlier how I really found this idea of daily discipline when I was in college. I was going to school full time, I was working 3 different jobs, and I still wanted to lift and I still wanted to do jujitsu. And what that meant was like, well, there's not much time left over in the day. And so my typical schedule in college was I'd get up around 2:30 or 3 a.m., be at the gym. I'd do like my morning routine, my personal development time. I'd get to the gym around 4 a.m., lift from 4 a.m. to 6. Then I would come home, shower, eat breakfast, and then be at class at 8 a.m. or 8:30, whatever time class started. I'd basically be at school all morning into the afternoon, leave school at 2 o'clock, start work at 3 o'clock, work the shift from 3 to 7 p.m., and then I'd go to the evening no-gi class for jiu-jitsu at 7:30. That class went from 7:30 to 8:30. Then I came home, showered, ate dinner, went to bed, and that was it. That was my day, and I did that multiple days throughout the week, and I didn't have much time for anything else. I cut out a lot of distractions. I didn't have much of a social life except just hanging out with my girlfriend. And that was totally okay. Like, that's honestly what I wanted. I wanted to be able to lift. I wanted to be able to roll. I wanted to be able to still like graduate college and get good grades. And I wanted to make money. So I was working these bunch of different jobs, and that didn't leave much time left over. And I was okay with that. For that season of my life, I was totally fine with that. I wasn't sleeping much, I'll tell you that. And that definitely led to some health issues down the line. But that was fine for my vision. Like, I had a vision of wanting to be as strong as possible, wanting to be as the best I could possibly be at jiu-jitsu. I still wanted to maintain a relationship with my girlfriend, which did pay off because now she's my wife. And I also wanted to be able to continue to make money and work. And that was that vision for that period of time. Then as I got older, as I started my own business, as I graduated college and things changed, my vision changed. And so now my vision is I still want to maintain a fantastic relationship with my wife, but I don't want to live in this isolated bubble of only hanging out with people at jiu-jitsu or in the gym. And so now I have a little bit more of a social life because having those relationships have become more important to me at this season of my life than they were at a prior season of my life. And the cost of spending more time with friends or building new relationships with friends may mean that I'm not going to jiu-jitsu 7 days a week. It may mean that I might have to stay up a little bit later, and if I still want to get quality sleep, I might have to get up later than 3 a.m. That's just the way it goes. And now that my vision has changed, the side effects of that mean that, okay, how I balance training in the gym and on the mat with work, with relationships and all that stuff, that has also changed. And so I encourage you to be really honest with yourself. And if you, whatever your goals are, whatever your vision is, have a brutally honest conversation with yourself and ask yourself, am I living a life and doing the things that are necessary to help me fulfill this vision? And if I don't have time to do the things that are necessary for me to fulfill this vision, is it worth it to me to cut out some of the other stuff to fill in with the things that are necessary to fulfill this vision? If you want to be the best grappling athlete that you can possibly be, but you only go to jiu-jitsu once a week, like something's not lining up with your vision. Your vision of being the best grappling athlete you could possibly be is going to require you to do more than just one jiu-jitsu class per week. If you want to compete at the highest level, yet you can only work out once a week and it's a half-assed workout at that, well, your vision is going to demand that you make some changes. And if you're not willing to make those changes, then you better change your vision, because it's only going to become more and more frustrating and disappointing when you have this vision, but you're not being honest with yourself and making the changes to do what is necessary to help you fulfill that vision. All that being said, this was another fantastic conversation with you guys as part of the Settlage Strength podcast. I want to hear from you guys. What stuff do you want to learn about? Do you want to learn more about programming? Do you want to learn more about selecting the exercises to help you get brutally strong as a grappler? Do you want to learn about the best supplements to maximize your muscle growth? Do you want to learn more about just like random life stuff and daily discipline and all of those things? Whatever it is you guys want to learn about or interested in gaining from this podcast, I want to hear it. So drop a comment or drop your questions or whatever you want to learn about in the comments below. I'm so set and I'm so committed to growing and expanding this lift heavy, roll hard grappling club. Like, I want us to have like a full movement where there's people all over the United States and beyond that are getting together, lifting some heavy ass weights, rolling hard in the paint, and having a great time doing it. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, thank you so much for listening. Share it with a friend. Lift heavy, roll hard. Catch y'all later. Peace.